am aware of the hardships you Jews have endured since the start of the war. But you have all been chosen for good, honest work. I assure you, your suffering is finally over. Eins, zwei.
What are we gonna do now?
Like this. If people do what the Germans are doing, they will help us.
On the way up tomorrow, we cut through the truck and we don't stop running.
Stop the truck! Hold on!
We need to keep moving. We have to warn our people what this place is, what it really is. We have to get the word out. As long as we're still breathing, there is hope. The Germans are building death camps.
No one can annihilate an entire nation and get away with it.
What do we do? The world must know the truth.
People will not remain silent. The world will tremble.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NRW, where nerds rule the world. And I am here with two people I'm very excited about as a granddaughter and great-granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. I was really lucky to watch this ahead of time. Lior Geller, who is the writer and director of The World Will Tremble, along with Jeremy Neumark Jones, who plays Michael Podchlebnik. How are you guys today?
Doing really well, thank you.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. I want to start very simply, or I'm going to start with you. This film, it did not shy away from what Jews had to do to each other, what they were forced to do to each other in this situation. Why didn't you want to kind of Hollywood that up a little bit to make it more palatable for people?
Mm-hmm. I think out of respect to the people who lived it, especially Michael Podchlebnik, the character Jeremy plays, a real individual, Solomon Weiner, who Oliver Jackson-Cohen plays, not just for them, but also all the survivors and the victims of Chelmno and of the other camps. I felt that in order to properly portray their story as best we can, I think it's impossible to even think that you could, step in the shoes of those people, right? But still, I think I felt the need to show the details of the camp, the horrors of the camp, as accurately as possible, without putting the more grotesque violence, or gratuitous violence in front of the camera, just keeping it more from the point of view of the characters of those people.
Absolutely, and it was done very well. You don't get into one thing that I was nervous about as a family member was I was nervous. I won't deny that this might have been too actiony or that it might have been too bloody, and it really played that line beautifully. Jeremy, I want to talk to you about Michael. It's stepping into anyone else's shoes is difficult. How did you feel when you read this role, and what did you do to make sure that his memory lived through you?
Well, when I felt very moved when I read the role. I'm Jewish as well myself. I felt very moved in a way that I think sometimes, when you're a Jewish actor and when your agent is pushing you for certain projects, a lot of Jewish, for want of a better word, based projects come your way. That could be modern stories, that could be past stories. There's times where I've, auditioned for people who are living in shtetls. There are times when I've auditioned for people who are living in modern Brooklyn, right? So there's infinite stories out there. And I think one of the things that really got to me about Lior's script and the vision for it was how it didn't pull any punches, but also how it wasn't sentimental. It really trod the line between those two things. You were constantly with the characters thinking about what they had to do next. They were living in this minute-to-minute existence. And then I think for me, the way into Michael, lots of ways in, but one was thinking about what was life like for him minute to minute to minute, and how did his perspective on what was happening to him and the people around him change from 1 minute into the next. And then the other thing about the way into the character, I had actually seen his interview in Shoah, which is a film from Claude Lanzmann. I'd recommend, if people haven't seen it, they should. It's a 9-hour-long documentary, but it comes in 3 parts. It's one of the most astounding pieces of filmmaking I've ever seen. But Michael is in that, and he's a featured interviewee in that. And it is one of the most, in a very affecting film, it was one of the most affecting moments in that film. And so I'd seen him talk, and I'd seen him years before I met Lior, years before I knew the project existed. And because he'd stuck with me so much, it felt like by the time I got to read the script, I knew him already, and I knew elements of him. And of course, you know, you discover a lot more. I wish Lior had, he can talk to this, of course, but he had actually talked to Michael's family. And I wish I had the chance to talk to them more, because I got to know the man through performing his actions and through going through these things, and also hearing him talk about those things. But I wish I'd have had the chance to dig further into it. Unfortunately, the time that we had in the turnaround meant that we couldn't do it. And they're in Israel, and we were in Bulgaria, and Lior's in LA, and I'm in London. So it's, you know, it's difficult, but that was the way in for me. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. And I believe part of that speech is what we see at the end of the film, correct? I believe part of his interview is what we get to see at the end of the film. So definitely for all of you out there, make sure you sit back and watch a little longer for the film. Don't just walk away when the credits start.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With that same notion, Lior, this was one of those films where, even though it might seem like it's a Hollywood story, it is based in reality, like true reality. What research did you have to do for this film?
A lot. So I found the story first about Chadnon, about Solomon and Michal's escape about 11, 12 years ago now. Through researching my own family's history, I came across Chadnon, and I remember thinking, this is such an incredible story. How has it not been told before? I was sure that it had, and perhaps I was just not familiar with it, but there were no films about it, you know, documentary, TV, anything. And then I started looking for a book to adapt. I couldn't even find a book dedicated to the escape and to the creation of the first eyewitness testimony of the Shoah. I thought that was fascinating. And I realized then that in order to write a script about it, I would have to, you know, conduct my own archival research in order to get all the information that I could get my hands on about Chadnon, about their escape. And that's why it took so long, because in between projects, I would go back. I would I went through a lot of materials with the at the Yad Vashem archive. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum Digital Archive is a great resource. There's the Polish archive, which is incredible as well. And a lot of that information was even not digitized yet at the time. They've been digitizing it, you know, over the last several years, but that's why it really had to be done through a lot of archival research. And you know, as the first film about Chadnon, the first Nazi death camp, and the first film about Michael and Solomon and their escape, I felt that we had a tremendous responsibility to accuracy. That's not to say that there's no dramatization. Of course there is, but especially more in terms of the escape elements. But in regards to the operations of the camp, the details of Chadnon, that I try to be as accurate as possible, because I don't like when stories like this, or films, even books, fictionalize too much the details of the camps. I think that needs to be as accurate as possible.
Absolutely. And I want to get back to that takeaway in a second, but Jeremy, I want to move to you real quick. We're talking about a period in time that has been, even though there are elements that are still being worked into books, that are still being digitized. This is a period in time that has been referenced, that we see in books everywhere. What is it but you've worked in other period pieces. What was different about this one, that you might have seen movies about many times before? What was different about this film while you were in it?
Well, I suppose one of the most interesting things about it, I'd say I'm relatively well versed in lots of documentation about the Holocaust and about the Jewish experience during the middle of the 20th century. And much more to say than, for example, another film, the film that I was working on at the time that I got the audition through was a medieval film about the Mongol invasion of Europe, right? And that's something I know nothing about. And so I read that and I thought, well, you know, this is crazy. They could tell me anything, but I wouldn't have anything to judge the veracity of that based on. But I suppose the thing that really got me about this was this is a film that starts in a death camp before death camps were known to have existed, as it were. And it's the hook in that is so powerful because as someone who I felt like I knew a lot about it, coming into this and realizing that the deception that went into the beginning of this attempt to exterminate the whole of the Jewish people had started even before I knew. So in a way, I, as a reader, was deceived in the same way. That was the thing that really got me because I thought, you know, I can't remember, Lior, is it how many months before the Wannsee conference did you say that it was before the final solution sort of came into being, known as by that title?
Yeah, so the camp Chemno started operating on December 8th, 1941. Our film takes place on January 19th, 1942, which was a day before the Wannsee conference where the final solution was officially implemented, right? They had planned it before, but the Wannsee conference is considered that day, and that was January 20th, 1942. So oftentimes people look at that date as the beginning of the final solution, and yet Chemno was in operation for weeks, before then, and Solomon and Michael escaped on January 19th, months before the first gas chambers were operational at Auschwitz-Birkenau or Treblinka or Sobibor. So I thought it was incredible. I was familiar with Chemno when I came across the story. I was even familiar with the gas vans, but I didn't realize that it started so early and that they escaped so early. I thought that is what was truly fascinating. And that's why I wanted to kind of place it in one day, more or less in real time, 2.5 hours of their last day at the camp and the escape. Because I thought that was incredible that they even, the Grabov, the village Grabov that they reached at the end was really just a few kilometers away, and they got there, shortly after. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, and so just to pick up on that and to finish the thought with that as well, I think one of the things for me as a person coming into it was you would have this reaction of people who see it and they say like, well, oh, you didn't look like you were very thin for the role. You didn't look like a concentration camp victim, right? And I suppose one of the amazing things about the film and the way that this story is you realize some people were in there just for weeks right at the start. They're not this kind of stereotypical end of Auschwitz, liberation of Auschwitz picture that you see. There's something completely different, right? They're people who have just been dragged in off the street, put to work, and a lot of them have been killed. So the originality of that as well really got my interest and my artistic mind engaged with what Lior wanted to do.
Absolutely. And to that point, I actually for a moment caught myself even thinking, wow, these are nice big chunky men for what's going on. And then it actually hit me again that one of the wonderful things I learned at the Holocaust Museum here in Washington, D.C. is that they purposely kept several men big so that they could do that hard work. And Michael has that horrible moment where, you see them commenting about how they still need strong men. Lior, to go back to what you were saying before, this is so hard to bring up, but once again, this is I don't want to call it the zeitgeist, but the Holocaust is in the zeitgeist. We know about it, we talk about it. Some people not so much, but we try to get that going. What do you hope this movie will bring new to the conversation?
I'm glad you're saying it's in the zeitgeist. I feel like it should be more. I think that's an interesting perspective. I think there have been so many great films made about the Holocaust from 1945 to today, roughly 500 or so feature films. And then TV series, there's some great TV series, going back to even the series Holocaust with Meryl Streep, and obviously documentaries. But, when one makes a film about the Holocaust, one needs to bring something new to the filmic discourse, to the conversation. And I felt that this brought that, because it was a story that people were not familiar with, even among viewers who were familiar with the Holocaust, even among Holocaust educators. I think that was clear to me, given the scarcity of information about Chelno. And it's understandable why there's so little info, because of the 300,000 or so Jews that were sent to Chelno between 1941 and 1945, only 4 walked out alive and survived the war, and we only knew about 3 of them up until recently. The 4th never gave a post-war testimony. So I think, on the one hand, I think there's a tremendous responsibility when you make a film about the Holocaust, and you have to bring something new. There have been such great films made about the Holocaust, and I felt in going into this that this project was able to bring that, because it was a story that was never told before, told in a way that perhaps we haven't seen so much, and at the same time, I think you and I, we can spend 5 minutes talking about each and every victim of the Holocaust, and we'd be here for longer than the years that have passed from the end of the Holocaust till now. And everybody deserves their story to be told. Michael and Solomon were true heroes, I think, but I think all the survivors were. I think those other characters that were fearful of escaping, I think they were heroes too. Just like Jeremy was saying, the life expectancy of a prisoner at Chelno was a few days, a week, 2 weeks at most. They would keep him alive. It wasn't a prison camp. It wasn't a concentration camp. It was an extermination center. And the only prisoners there were there for the sole purpose of making the machine work. They were forced to either work at the villa or work at the gravesite, and that was their sole purpose. And that's why there were so few prisoners there, and there are so few survivors. So I think we're living in a time where pretty soon we won't have any Holocaust survivors alive anymore, unfortunately, right? And when I was growing up, Holocaust survivors would come to your school sometimes, and in Israel you would see them. You would see somebody at the market with a number on their hands, on their arms. But that's changing. So how do we learn about the Holocaust in an era where there might not be any survivors anymore? And I think it's our responsibility to continue telling these stories.
Absolutely. My step-grandmother is one of those people. She is 97 and going strong. So I get that. I understand entirely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And where is she from?
She's from Warsaw. So.
Okay, wow. So she survived in the Warsaw Ghetto. Do you know what camp she was in?
She was able to get out just before they smuggled her and her brother into the UK. So.
Wow, incredible.
So she'll if for the audience out there, if you ever get a chance, please just Google speeches from Holocaust survivors. Some of them were very young. My step grandmother talks about the bombings in the UK a lot, because that's where she had to go. She had no other choice. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time today. The World Will Tremble arrives in theaters on March 14th. Thank you guys, and you all have a wonderful day.
Nerds rule the world!
Pleasure chatting with you. Love to all my nerds who rule the world.
Yeah. Nerds rule the world!
Yes, we do.
Thanks. Nerds rule the world.
Thank you.
I love the nerds ruling the world, so more power to you.
Patrick, what up, man? And yes, they do. Nerds rule the world, kid.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Awesome. Kuya P, nerds rule the world. Hello.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Oh,
nerds rule the world.
I got.
It's in the title of your show, like nerds rule the world. Like I want more black weirdos on screen, and I don't feel like we ever get to see that very much.
Thank you so much. Nerds do rule the world.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Nerds Rule.
Love it.
Hello, Sarah. Hello, Julian.
Yes.
Rock on. I love it. Thank you so much.
It's good to see you. I love Nerds Rule the World.
But yeah, there's a heavy nerd component, man.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you ask me, nerds rule the world. So
Absolutely.
And you're right. Nerds do rule the world.
We're just the best.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies.
Nerds so much.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
It's your boy Kuya P. Nerds rule the world. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you.
do. They rule the world all right.
Yes. Take care, Tony. Thank you, guys.